Jonah pointed to the shredded auction banner fluttering in the autumn breeze as he went through the crowd on what would be an amazing day. The auction location, located on a huge property outside the city boundaries, was bustling with activity and the prospect of purchasing prized animals. Amidst the hubbub of excited bidders, a somber drama was playing out in the stray pen behind the stage. In that enclosure stood a scruffy mongrel with noble loneliness in his eyes, a dog that everyone else had immediately dismissed. The animal's matted fur and weathered features, softened by sweet, sympathetic eyes, identified him as an outcast from the day's usual festivities. However, as luck would have it, one person among the throng of eager bidders spotted more than just an undesirable animal. While many people spent the morning speculating on prize horses and animals, young Elijah Grayson was drawn to the shadowed corral in the back of the lot. Elijah was a calm soul with a good heart and a strong sense that everyone had an inner narrative. Life had given him enough obstacles without forcing him to discard others who couldn't easily call for aid. He'd grown up hearing wise words from his grandmother: even if life rejects you at an auction, your worth is never defined by the bids of the moment. With that mentality ingrained, Elijah didn't hesitate for a second when he set his sights on the abandoned dog. The dog, who Elijah later discovered was named Rusty, sat sad but vigilant, as if silently pleading for mercy in a world that had long since forgotten his worth. As Elijah approached, the auctioneer's hammer hit many times, closing bargains that emphasized spectacular appearances and good lineage. However, no bids were received for Rusty. Elijah paused on the sidelines, his heart filled with determination. He saw a faithful spirit unfairly ignored, rather than an unhappy stray. At that precise moment, the young man resolved to take Rusty home, not only to improve the dog's life, but also to rewrite the story of a forgotten soul. The young man approached during a small pause in the auction announcements. His voice was firm as he offered a special proposal for Rusty, based not on monetary value, but on true affection and the possibility of transformation. The muttering audience fell silent, and the auctioneer looked him skeptically, used to agreements sealed by wealth rather than sympathy. However, Elijah's proposition was different. Between awe and determination, the crowd realized that Rusty, more than any other animal, deserved a chance. After a stressful few moments, the auctioneer agreed to Elijah's request. The hammer dropped not to indicate the sale of a prize animal, but to represent the echo of hope for the rejected one. Rusty was free in a matter of moments, but it would be a lifetime later. That afternoon, Elijah began the delicate task of restoring the broken confidence of a creature abandoned by life's ruthless auction block. His modest but comfortable cottage on the outskirts of the town's forest became a shelter for both man and dog. From that day forward, Elijah's yard was filled with soft laughter and calm company, as Rusty grew from a sad stray to a magnificent life partner. The metamorphosis was neither immediate nor magical. It required daily acts of compassion, numerous moments of understanding, and the gradual reawakening of a once weathered spirit. Elijah's gentle kindness went into every fiber of Rusty's being, until the dog's eyes gleamed like the morning sun. In the following weeks, Elijah's neighborhood was abuzz with stories about the rescued dog. Curious children would come to see, their eyes wide with astonishment as Rusty ran with renewed confidence. Neighbors, fascinated by the dog's newfound attitude, frequently commented on how living beings could improve each other's lives through nothing more than solidarity and love. Jonah, whose eyes had initially spotted the rejected puppy, quickly returned. Seeing Rusty's transformation and the unbreakable link he developed with Elijah, Jonah recognized that sometimes the burden of judgment lies on those who are unable to see the hidden beauty beneath wounds. With a respectful expression on his face, Jonah found himself musing on his own misplaced priorities and the numerous stories that had been hidden by neglect and disrespect. Days passed into weeks, and Elijah and Rusty's simple togetherness became a symbol in town. However, nothing stays simple for long. One crisp morning, when autumn gave way to the silvery chill of winter, Elijah had an unexpected visitor at his doorstep. Ms. Adelaide Carmichael, an aging philanthropist, was known for both her opulent charity balls and her mystery history. According to rumors, Adelaide was once an accomplished socialite whose riches surged during happier times, but as time passed, she preferred seclusion and introspection. After hearing whispers about a man and his dog's transformational journey, she decided to offer Elijah her support, hoping to help him convert his humble life into one that may serve as a beacon of hope. Elijah initially embraced her presence with respect and caution. His heart was unaccustomed to the spotlight that comes with public notoriety. Nonetheless, Miss Carmichael's kind smile and palpable empathy gradually wore away at his reserve. Over cups of hot tea on the porch, she told her own story of resilience, about how life had once presented her with the bleak residue of rejection until love and perseverance changed the story. To her, Rusty and Elijah represented what could be accomplished when genuine compassion overcame the heart's initial cynicism. With Adelaide's connections and generous resources, Elijah's small sanctuary grew into a community center for animals and humans in need. That location evolved into a living witness to the potential of repentance and transformation, reflecting the exact message that had drawn Elijah to Rusty. As winter progressed, new obstacles appeared on the horizon. Not everyone who heard about Elijah and Rusty's miracles wanted to go on such an uplifting path. Victor Dalton, a local businessman known for his short-sighted avarice and contempt for nature's inherent value, regarded the growing center as a threat to his ambition for a high-end development project. Victor had the ability to permanently modify the town's landscape thanks to civic investments. Under the pretense of modernization, he planned to abolish the community center and repurpose the area as a commercial hub. His actions exposed a shadow battle of ideals, a conflict between profit-driven ambition and the inescapable human desire for community and empathy. Victor's campaigns began by criticizing the center's finances, stating that the sanctuary was a relic of a bygone period. He initiated a smear campaign, calling into question the center's contributions and tarnishing the reputation of individuals who believed in elevating the lowly lives of abandoned souls. His speech was strong and his aims were clear, and for a time, the community teetered on the verge of separation. Elijah, who had always lived his life with compassion rather than confrontation, found himself caught in the midst of a raging ideological battle. The threat was not only to the community center, but to something far deeper, a recognition that every life, human or animal, deserved a second chance. In the midst of rising pressure, Elijah came to the stark understanding that his personal journey of forgiveness and change was part of a bigger societal story. Meetings were conducted in the town hall, where community members discussed passionately, and often heatedly, about the future. Rusty, the silent watcher with deep eyes, became a symbol of perseverance and hope, a live reminder of what could be salvaged when one refused to be abandoned. His formerly melancholy eyes glistened with purpose, confirming that every rejected spirit possessed the potential to influence many lives. In the midst of this fight, Elijah and his supporters found allies in the most unlikely places, former misfits, abandoned souls, and even some of Victor's disenfranchised employees who saw Elijah as an opportunity to right a long-standing wrong. As the fighting lines formed, Elijah made the decision to confront Victor directly. Elijah met Victor outside the community center on a dreary, rainy evening, when the town's mood was as dark as the clouded sky. The two guys exchanged furious words beneath the flickering lamppost, fueled by dissatisfaction and unmet expectations. Victor, his eyes narrowed in self-assured superiority, accused Elijah of engaging in foolish idealism that threatened development. Elijah listened carefully before responding in a cool tone that belied the sincerity of his beliefs. He reminded Victor that progress was judged not only by economic prosperity, but also by the improvement of all lives, the healing of long-buried wounds, and the rehabilitation of those who had previously been abandoned by society. Victor was caught aback by Elijah's measured strength and found himself temporarily at a loss, a short glimpse of a future that may have been different if empathy had been as important as ambition. This confrontation sparked a chain reaction of unanticipated occurrences that would change the course of the community center's future. The discussion spread to the local media, with Elijah's lowly beginnings reported in both newspapers and television segments. The story of the abandoned puppy and the young guy who discovered an overlooked treasure in him moved people all over the country. Elijah, bolstered by public support, thought it was time to plan a huge event at the community center, a celebration of renewal and the intrinsic value of every life. Invitations were issued far and wide, and the center was turned into a colorful mosaic of festivities. People gathered under fairy lights and the soothing echo of soft music to watch acts of compassion, ranging from participatory animal care workshops to storytelling sessions in which individuals told their own resurgence journeys. Rusty, now the center's emblem, joined in the festivities with an infectious zeal that few could match. Even the most hardened cynics were moved to tears by the sight of the once-rejected dog reveling in the adoration of passers-by. Elijah delivered a poignant statement on stage during the great celebration. He congratulated everyone in attendance for being a part of a movement that valued life in all of its forms and printed heartfelt remarks about the need of giving every creature a second opportunity. His words, full of honesty and hope, struck a deep chord, and it became evident that the war for the community center was a fight for the very soul of human goodness. Moved even more by Rusty's metamorphosis, many town residents who had before supported Victor began to push for a future in which growth and compassion might share the stage. However, no significant transformation occurs without sacrifice. Just as the community center was thriving, a mysterious ailment began to affect some of the town's animals, a phenomena that even the town's most experienced veterinarians failed to explain. The virus, as it spread, caused sadness and uncertainty. The community center, previously touted as a haven for healing, was now put to the ultimate test. Elijah was split between the urgent need to care for the sick animals and the long-running struggle to secure the center's place in the town's future. While officials investigated the cause, Elijah worked relentlessly to restore the animals' health, even sacrificing sleep and personal comfort. Rusty stood by his side the entire time, a continuous, stoic presence whose warm eyes appeared to comfort everyone that life, despite its difficulties, had mysteries of infinite tenacity. The disaster, while tragic, revealed unexpected details. During the careful inquiry to trace the origins of the illness, specialists concluded that the outbreak could be linked to environmental neglect and a covert industrial operation operating near the town's outskirts. The revelation shed new insight on Victor Dalton's long-standing demand for modernization, which some officials believe is now perilously close to environmental destruction. Even as the community rallied to support Elijah's animal rescue efforts, investigations delved deeper, revealing unethical methods that endangered not only the creatures but the entire ecosystem. The public's perception steadily changed, and even Victor's most ardent supporters began to doubt the true cost of quick progress. Amid the rising hurdles, a young local journalist named Mara Rivera emerged as a shining example of media ethics. Mara grew raised in town and was known for her unwavering dedication to the truth. With a natural talent for narrative that could elicit deep empathy, she began on an investigative series to capture the catastrophe. Mara's interviews with bereaved pet owners, environmental experts, and even defiant local industry executives provided a striking picture of the fight between business and preservation, advancement and compassion. Her pieces, which were serialized in the local newspaper and carried on regional television, burnt away the layers of half-truths and provided audiences with a clear grasp of the stakes. Mara's series not only kept the community informed, but it also mobilized public opinion. People organized protests, attended town hall meetings, and actively demanded greater transparency and environmental supervision from their municipal authorities. In the midst of this reform frenzy, disparities that had long been accepted in the name of economic growth were finally exposed, and the townspeople developed a sense of community responsibility. Elijah found himself at the center of this multifaceted conflict. Every day, despite personal tiredness and the emotional toll of crisis management, he emerged as a constant figure of perseverance. His acts encouraged others, reinforcing the revolutionary message he had adopted when he first bid on Rusty. His life, inextricably linked with the once-rejected dog, became a testament to the redemptive power of hope, community, and the unyielding belief that every life, no matter how neglected, has the potential to effect great change. At this point, the community had a choice: continue along the route of blind modernization driven simply by business, or embrace a more holistic approach that valued both progress and the intrinsic worth of all people. Residents and leaders were forced to reckon with the truths brought out by Mara's investigative work and the concrete changes apparent in the heart of their community during a heated town council meeting on a stormy winter's night. Emotions soared as passionate pleas and measured arguments filled the council chamber. Elijah seized the floor after being summoned by the council's haste to respond to the mounting issue. His words spoke with the conviction of someone who had experienced the harsh realities of life and realized that true advancement required compassion as much as capital. "I stand before you today not as someone who champions half of what we desire," Elijah said, his tone earnest and firm, "but as someone who believes that by embracing every life, whether it be the man, the animal, or even the humble soil beneath our feet, we can forge a future that honors our shared humanity. Rejecting any creature in our midst, whether human or dog, is a denial of our own potential. I beg you to ponder this. Have we not learnt from Rusty's path that beauty thrives when given the opportunity to grow?" Elijah's impassioned plea sparked something deep in the council members. His words distilled feelings that had long simmered in the community, and a sense of solidarity rippled over the gathering. The decision was made to impose strict environmental controls, and the proposed renovation project was amended to protect the community center and the natural habitats that supported it. Though Victor Dalton and his allies were dismayed, the tide of public opinion had clearly shifted. Finally, Victor was unable to ignore the overwhelming evidence that true progress was inextricably linked to the well-being of the community and its environment. Following the meeting, residents gathered outside the hall for an impromptu celebration, embracing the renewed commitment to a future in which every person is cherished. Under a brilliant night sky dotted with stars, the community center emanated warmth and promise once more. The epidemic's healing gradually gathered steam as environmental reforms took root and nature, in its tenacious way, began to patch the rift made by unregulated industrialization. Veterinarians, conservationists, and local healers worked together to treat the animals and restore the soil. Every effort, large or small, was a step toward a brighter, more inclusive future. Throughout it all, Elijah and Rusty's friendship served as a gentle beacon, reminding everyone of where their journey had begun. Rusty's transformation, from a rejected, dejected dog at an auction to a living symbol of second chances, was imprinted on every discussion, commemorative plaque, and heart that still believed in the power of compassion. Townspeople would tell stories of how one young man's determination to let go of an apparently tiny soul may tip the scales of fate in favor of compassion and justice. The narrative spread throughout schools, urging students to speak out against injustice and to treat all living things with respect and care. The former auction site, once a location where lives were measured exclusively by bids and offers, has become a pilgrimage destination, reminding each visitor that love and redemption may be found in the most unexpected places. Summer eventually returned, ushering in a season of regeneration not just in nature but also in the lives of people who had worked so hard for change. The community center grew into a thriving hub for artistic expression, environmental education, and animal care. Workshops thrived, teaching skills as diverse as sustainable agriculture and creative writing, all linked by a shared thread of community spirit. Elijah, now renowned as both a caregiver and an instructor, provided mentorship to troubled youths and aspiring animal rescuers alike. He frequently discussed how his encounter with Rusty started a profound psychological transformation, teaching him the importance of all living things and the fortitude required to stand up to the tide of neglect. One day, as the bright light of an August afternoon played across the rolling fields, Elijah received a letter. The envelope, sealed with a superb wax crest, featured the logo of a well-known animal protection organization. Inside, the letter praised Elijah's amazing work and invited him to join an international movement dedicated to improving the condition of abandoned animals worldwide. The invitation was accompanied by a pledge of support for expanding the community center's reach beyond the town's boundaries. Elijah accepted the invitation with both humility and joy. He saw that his personal path, which was so connected with Rusty's own story of transformation, had now become part of something far larger, a movement that emphasized the universality of compassion across cultures and continents. As the months passed and Elijah began to travel, speaking at conferences, meeting with communities in other locations, and putting a light on stories of ignored lives, the legacy of the once-rejected dog grew stronger. Nonetheless, even as the success of Elijah's worldwide contacts reverberated beyond vast horizons, the community center remained a haven and a focal point for local action. Every year on the anniversary of the auction day that changed everything, the community held a celebration to honor not only the center's accomplishments, but also the spirit of giving and second chances. As the event progressed, there were laughs, tears, and lively disagreements. The once dismissed auction block had been transformed into a commemorative site where messages of hope were written, ensuring that every visitor recalled the day when one young man's conviction changed the course of fate for a forsaken creature. Old and young, rich and poor, everyone came together to remind one another that rejection was not the end of the tale, but rather an opportunity to find value and create a future based on understanding and empathy. In the final tapestry of our story, Elijah and Rusty's legacy lasted long after the festival lights went out and the last echoes of celebration died away. Their trip demonstrated that courage is frequently found in the most unexpected places, and that atonement is not limited to great actions but can be fostered through simple, continuous compassion. From the humble beginnings of a rejected puppy discovered at an auction to the deep, far-reaching influence of a community united by love and justice, the tale went viral, inspiring countless people to see beyond superficial appearances and embrace the transformational power of compassion. Residents of the village would recollect the formidable lessons provided by that transformational day in moments of quiet reflection, when the night was at its calmest and the stars whispered truths only the heart could comprehend. It was a story that began with neglect and concluded with an affirmation of life's remarkable resilience. It was a tribute to the timeless fact that every soul, no matter how beaten or shattered, contains the seed of rebirth within. To this day, when someone doubts about the true value of life, they just have to remember the rejected puppy at an auction and the young man who dared to bid for hope, a narrative that, with each passing day, moved everyone who heard it. So, in a world full of commotion and fleeting praises, Elijah and Rusty's narrative stayed as quiet yet loud as the soft heartbeat of a compassionate soul, a redemption song that transcended time and distance. It served as a living myth, a fable for those who dared to think that every creature deserved to be seen and loved, and that any spirit who refused to give up in the face of hardship had the right to be transformed. In the sweet embrace of twilight, even as the seasons spun ceaselessly forward and life's troubles re-emerged in new avatars, the legacy of that accidental meeting at an auction endured. Every stride taken in the small alleys of the reconstructed community center, every smile shared beneath the open sky, the remembrance of Rusty's soulful eyes and Elijah's unyielding drive reignited the spark of hope in hearts long scarred by grief. In the midst of laughter and shared tears, as stories of rejection developed into memoirs of resurgence, the altered lives bore witness to the fact that even one discarded soul could change the course of many, that compassion was the most potent currency ever. For, as the whispers of time weave their intricate patterns, the abandoned dog at an auction and the young man who rescued him came to exemplify an everlasting truth: metamorphosis, in its quiet, unassuming might, has the potential to remake the world. And as long as people choose empathy over indifference, each chapter of that epic narrative would serve as a reminder that even the tiniest acts of kindness may touch everyone in ways that last well beyond the present moment. Thus, with hearts joined and spirits raised, the legacy of that dreadful day has continued to inspire, transform, and celebrate the quiet courage that exists within every heart. The story, passed down through generations, served as an invitation to look beyond the surface and embrace a world in which all beings were valued. And with each succeeding sunrise, gentle breeze, and lingering moment of meditation, the memory of a once-rejected dog and a young man's indomitable spirit lived on, a legacy of love that moved everyone, permanently changing the trajectory of lives, one compassionate gesture at a time. Every life is richer when it is recognized, every soul is given hope when it is fostered, and every community is stronger when it accepts the forgotten. As the echoes of those early moments resonated through the halls of time, a new era emerged, one founded on the foundation of gentle understanding, fortitude to resist neglect, and embrace the value inherent in every heart. The story of Elijah and Rusty, a mix of hardship, grace, and redemption, became a timeless reminder that the most profound transformations can begin with something as simple as a rejected dog at an auction, and the journey that follows touches everyone in its quiet, unwavering pursuit of hope. So, when the dusk curtain descended once more over that beloved community center, compassion's legacy lived on in every whispered word, shared memory, and act of kindness. For those who observed the transformation held a firm belief that every life, no matter how lowly, had the capacity to inspire, heal, and transform the world around it. Elijah and Rusty sowed seeds of hope by daring to see the hidden worth in what many had dismissed, resulting in a future defined by renewal rather than rejection, a future in which every soul was valued, every story was honored, and every heart, no matter how small, resonated with the eternal promise of a second chance. Everyone who hears this story is affected by the memory of that day, an auction, a day of change, a day when one young man reached out to redeem a lost soul. It reminds us that true progress is measured by our ability to see beauty in the broken, find hope in despair, and champion every life as a demonstration of love's transformational power. In the end, the journey of that rejected dog and the young man who believed in him confirms one obvious truth: every story matters, and every act of kindness has the capacity to impact us all, causing ripples that alter the course of history itself. And so, beneath the ever-changing skies, as life continued its never-ending dance of love and grief, the words of that terrible day echoed through hearts far and wide, a silent herald asking us to welcome the rejected and treasure every spark of life. May the story of Elijah and Rusty serve as a timeless beacon, guiding each of us to a future in which compassion reigns supreme and every soul, seen or unseen, has the opportunity to shine. For it is in those small acts of redemption that we find the truest measure of humanity, a measure that, in its unfathomable depth, moves everyone. As the seasons changed, the community center, an enduring symbol of hope, continued to exert its transformational effect on the lives it touched. With winter behind them and the promise of spring stirring the landscape, Elijah sensed that their trip was far from over. The victory over those who had previously pursued advancement at the expense of compassion had brought the community together in subtle and profound ways. However, beneath the surface of fresh hope, new obstacles arose, challenges that would put to the test not just the community's commitment to healing every lost soul, but also the notion that the power of compassion could heal even the deepest scars of the past. Late one cold morning, when the early dawn streamed through the sprouting limbs of ancient oak trees that bordered the center's grounds, an unexpected guest arrived. Elijah found a battered mail on his porch, with no return address but an official seal. Inside, a message invited him to a meeting in a distant city, a gathering of leaders, innovators, and activists from throughout the country who had all advocated for causes similar to his own. They wanted to undertake an ambitious plan to establish a network of sanctuaries and community centers dedicated to treating not only animals, but all beings wounded by societal neglect. The letter included not only collaboration and shared ambitions, but also resources, alliances, and ideas that could help him transform his small purpose into something with far-reaching significance. Elijah, intrigued and energized by the prospect of amplifying his work, called a meeting at the community center. Neighbors, local activists, and even a few previous skeptics who had evolved into loud proponents gathered in the large hall. The crowd was alive with renewed energy and enthusiasm. Rusty, who was always the center of attention, trotted through the gathering as if he, too, sensed that life was about to take on new meaning. As Elijah recounted the invitation and shared the idea of expanding the network of compassion, each listener's eyes gleamed with the awareness that their small village had become a beacon for others to seek direction. In the weeks that followed, planning for the epic expedition began in earnest. The community center was transformed into a hub of activity. Volunteers planned fundraisers, creative workshops took unexpectedly intricate turns, and every corner of the facility rang with hopes of making the world a better place. Elijah began contacting with the network of like-minded people, exchanging ideas through personal letters and lively online discussions. Ideas flowed easily, including how to incorporate environmental stewardship, mental health support, and even vocational training into the fabric of each sanctuary. It was a fusion of passions, compassion, creativity, and dedication that promised to go beyond the confines of their small community. However, as preparations took shape, Elijah realized that even in a community strengthened by love, dissension might occur. A small group of people in town questioned if pursuing such lofty goals would jeopardize the connection and honesty that had prompted the transformation in the first place. One especially passionate meeting, held beneath the center's awning during a sudden summer rainfall, saw voices rise in dread of losing the local spirit that had fostered so many lives. "We built something beautiful here," argued one longtime resident, "and I'm worried that in reaching out to the rest of the world, we'll lose sight of who we truly are." Elijah listened to these worries with empathy and respect, realizing that any change comes with some loss. However, he gently reminded them that the heart of their goal was not to change who they were, but to share the love, based on their community's shared experiences, with those who needed it the most. His measured and sympathetic words gradually persuaded even the most resistant souls to embrace the broader, unifying vision. As preparations for the approaching expedition progressed, the community found itself at a crossroads between contemplation and aspiration. The metamorphosis, which began with a single act of kindness, was now set to bridge gaps far beyond their hometown streets. With Rusty by his side, a live symbol of resilience and hope, Elijah set off on preliminary excursions to meet with other leaders in places plagued by severe inequities and forgotten neighborhoods. These excursions, at times exciting and devastating, proved that, while each location bore distinct scars, the capacity for redemption was a language shared by all. Elijah encountered souls who had previously accepted a life of silent sorrow, both in big urban centers and peaceful rural hamlets. He saw reflections of the numerous rejected beings he had seen at the sale so long ago in their eyes, a reminder that every appeal for aid went unheard unless someone cared enough to listen. In one particularly remarkable encounter in a large metropolis, Elijah encountered Sophia, a determined social worker with a track record of rescuing children from dysfunctional systems. Sophia's voice quivered as she related stories of missed opportunities and how even the tiniest act of kindness might ignite life-changing transformations. Elijah was moved by her genuineness, and he recognized in her the same spark that had started his own journey with Rusty years before. Together, they began to plan methods to connect their individual networks, combining animal refuge with safe areas for the vulnerable human spirit. As the relationship grew, so did hope, a reminder that the tapestry of compassion was woven not from isolated strands, but from a complex web of interconnected lives. Meanwhile, in the welcoming embrace of the community center, the spirit of the original mission thrived. Workshops on sustainable living, elder storytelling circles, and open-air film screenings highlighting community resilience all became regular activities. The center's previously empty walls were now filled with murals illustrating the path from rejection to redemption, a sprawling tapestry of color and passion that depicted the various moments of transformative love. Every brushstroke was a memory, and every color represented the hope that every life, no matter how damaged by previous neglect, might contribute to the beauty of a shared future. Throughout the chapters, Rusty remained a constant, a silent narrator of optimism. His kind presence eased the hard edges of doubt and brought smiles to weary faces. Children learned to approach him with gentle inquiry, adults found relief in his uncomplicated loyalty, and elderly remembered their own stories of long-forgotten childhood. Rusty's bright eyes embodied the affirmations of renewal, a living bridge connecting the cherished past to an unknown future. As Elijah's attempt to connect with people progressed, he heard news that called into question all they had battled for. A surprising environmental setback, a leak from a nearby industrial plant, jeopardized the safety of a wildlife preserve. The catastrophe tested the burgeoning network's solidarity. Concerned individuals hurried to the scene, and local conservationists and environmental professionals worked together to stop the leak and reduce its damage. The subsequent emergency sessions were laden with tension, and for a brief time, it appeared that the delicate balance between development and preservation had shifted toward disorder. Despite the uncertainties, the ideas ingrained in the heart of the community center shone through. Elijah, Sophia, and other network leaders worked diligently to ensure a prompt and transparent response from both the industrial entity and the government. Their collaborative action, anchored in trust, accountability, and the memory of every rejected soul awaiting a second chance, created pressure that resulted in prompt remedial action. The calamity, while leaving scars on both the land and the hearts of those who experienced it, eventually underlined a fundamental truth, that when a community is united in purpose, it can overcome even the most formidable problems. In the reflecting haze that followed the crisis, as rains washed residues of industrial dirt from the leaves and hearts began to heal, the enlarged network of sanctuaries and centers emerged stronger and more resilient. Plans were revised to reflect increased understanding of environmental concerns and renewed pledges to interdependence and caring. Elijah's legacy, which had previously been embodied primarily through the metamorphosis of Rusty and the limitations of a simple community center, began to echo across states and cityscapes. Stories of innovation, compassion, and unshakable persistence spread, inspiring similar projects in areas where hope had previously been scarce. So, as Elijah penned letters to new allies, coordinated heartfelt meetings, and relayed messages of solidarity to communities near and far, he carried within him the lessons of his beginnings, a memory of the day when a rejected dog, now celebrated in every loving gesture and rehabilitated life, demonstrated to him that every soul, no matter how overlooked, possessed the power to light the way forward. The story, which began in the quiet corners of a tiny village, had developed into an anthem for everyone who dared to imagine a world in which compassion was the truest form of progress. The spirit of that first act of kindness continued to inspire, reminding everyone that transformation was a group journey rather than a single endeavor. And as the long road ahead stretched into ever-brightening horizons, every member of the community, whether they had once balked at change or fervently embraced it, found themselves united by the timeless promise that rejection could be transformed into a celebration of life, and that every heart could, in its own way, move the world. The renewed spirit of the community center and the rapidly expanding network of sanctuaries carried Elijah on a journey that was far more than the guiding thread, which began with a rejected puppy discovered at an auction, now connects varied stories of hardship, healing, and transformation. Over time, every member of the community, whether they had previously experienced deep seclusion or faced their own times of desolation, came to understand that the essence of life was found not in perfection, but in the ability to rise again after each fall. As the crisis with the industrial leak faded into a memory of collective perseverance, the network began hosting an annual Day of Renewal. On this day, communities gathered at local centers to share stories of reawakening, celebrate victories large and small, and remember that every life, no matter how overlooked, was a candidate for hope. During today's inaugural ceremony, Elijah took a minute to stand in front of a crowd that stretched as far as the eye could see. Illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns under a twilight sky and surrounded by the gentle murmur of heartfelt conversations, he recalled the transformative day when an unassuming chosen soul, a dog named Rusty, taught him and, by extension, the entire town that love was the most valuable currency. Today, Elijah started, his voice firm and clear, we celebrate not only the success of what we've achieved, but also the road that brought us here. We stand together, united by our belief that no one is genuinely rejected, and no life is completely lost. Every difficulty and hardship we confront contributes to the vast symphony of healing. Like our beloved Rusty, we are all capable of change. And every act of compassion, no matter how small, contributes a line to that song. The audience answered with a resounding, unifying applause, promising that everyone will continue to follow the virtues of empathy and kindness every day. In the midst of this camaraderie, Sophia and a slew of new allies took on the task of documenting the day's events, guaranteeing that the records of each story, of every challenge overcome with tenacity, would be passed down from generation to generation. Even those who had previously questioned the road of compassion and civic spirit recognized that true progress was measured in the small adjustments that touched hearts and transformed views, one nice deed at a time. Rusty, no longer the forlorn creature of the distant past, but a dignified envoy of optimism, padded about near the stage. With each loving stare he cast on the audience, they remembered that transformation might begin anywhere. His deep, soulful eyes served as a mute reminder of both the darkness of neglect and the radiance of restoration. In his tranquil presence, the people witnessed a reflection of their journey, from isolation to shared communion, as well as physical confirmation that every setback may be a stepping stone towards rejuvenation. As nightfall gave way to the silent magnificence of the starry night, the community center and its network of sanctuaries left an imprint far beyond the small hamlet where it all began. News of their incredible adventure spread throughout regions, prompting similar movements to emerge in faraway cities and remote towns alike. People all over felt moved by Elijah's story, which was connected with Rusty's. It became not merely a local legend, but also a timeless call to action for anyone who has ever felt ostracized or abandoned. The message was clear: every soul, given the opportunity to heal and evolve, has the potential to brighten the world around it. In the following months, Elijah continued to travel, share, and learn. Collaboration strengthened as the network of compassion increased. New programs have evolved that combine sustainable practices with community empowerment, innovative environmental safeguards, and sincere personal support. Workshops grew into dynamic knowledge centers where approaches for healing the land coexisted with methods for nurturing damaged spirits. With each endeavor, every new link made and maintained, the seeds of change grew into long-term, practical results. Every testimonial reaffirmed that the united strength of caring hearts has the power to alter not only communities but the future of the entire world. In quieter moments, when Elijah found himself alone beneath a moonlit sky or paused at the entrance of his modest home, he would frequently think on the many paths that had brought him from that fateful day at the auction to this moment of serene reflection. He remembered the tentative steps toward the stray pen, the subtle murmur of the auctioneer's gavel that marked a watershed moment, and the glimmers of hope that were now carved all about him. These vivid and irrefutable recollections weaved a tapestry of lessons about resilience, acceptance, and the transformative power of simple acts of kindness. And in those delicate memories, Elijah saw that reaching out, extending a hand, a word, or a quiet smile, was a revolutionary act of love capable of defying even the most formidable odds. The community had discovered that unity was formed not through the perfection of its constituents, but rather through the true acceptance of its flaws. Each human, animal, and part of nature was recognized for their contribution to a larger, shared vision. The network of sanctuaries, which arose from one young man's compassion, expressed the concept that each life had something special to offer. In rejecting the past's fast judgments, the people came to enjoy the honest, sometimes brutal, reality of human experience. They realized that the strands of kindness, when woven together, could mend even the most frayed emotions, transforming a community of individuals into a tapestry of shared hope. The message of the rejected dog and the young man who dared to bid for hope persisted over the years. It resonated in the laughter of children as they learned to be gentler with one another and with the planet, in the resolute eyes of activists as they worked relentlessly for justice and environmental stewardship, and in the quiet moments of introspection shared by elders passing along their knowledge. The center gradually evolved into a pilgrimage site, a symbol of the possibilities that exists in every seemingly little act of caring, where each individual is celebrated and no one is forgotten. Elijah realized at the end of a long life that his labor was never completely complete. Every day, new obstacles and opportunities for progress arose, with the unsaid promise that the cycle of redemption and regeneration would never end. The memory of that rejected dog, which is now immortalized in stories, murals, and many people's hearts, inspired a new generation of dreamers to brave the unknown, armed only with the determination to make a difference. And with each sunrise, when hope returned with the new day's light, they were reminded that the journey was just as essential as the destination, and that every act of kindness was a victory over inaction. On one such bright afternoon, when the aroma of budding flowers blended with the joyous murmur of neighbors at work, the long journey came to a pleasant end. At a community celebration in the center's lush garden, Elijah spoke to a new generation of wide-eyed newcomers, children, families, and eager volunteers eager to carry on the tradition. He spoke of a world in which every heart was a never-ending flame of possibility, where yesterday's scars served as lessons for tomorrow, and true development was measured by the simple yet profound act of caring for others. His voice, firm with conviction and softened with humility, proclaimed, "Today we celebrate not the end, but the birth of a promise that even the smallest spark can ignite a revolution of love, and that every life, no matter how broken, has the power to change the world. As laughter, acclaim, and tears of appreciation blended beneath the vast sky, it was as if time itself had stopped to respect the attained oneness. Elijah's comments constituted both a blessing and an invitation, a call to continue cultivating the shared garden of hope and to ensure that no one ever feels rejected or alone again. Rusty rested calmly nearby, his eyes reflecting the beautiful glow of sunset, a living monument to the fact that healing can take many forms, and that even the quietest voice can alter the hearts of many. As the story of Elijah and Rusty came to a peaceful end, it also opened the door to an infinite number of new chapters, each written by countless others who had been touched by their journey. The rejected dog at an auction, changed by love and gentle persistence, had sparked a movement that crossed boundaries and healed wounds, not via great gestures, but through the unwavering conviction that every life is valuable. This ultimate act of solidarity secured the legacy of kindness. It was a legacy etched in the minds of a community that chose empathy over apathy, hope over despair, and connection over isolation. The story, which spanned hardships and victories, served as a constant reminder that revolution frequently begins with a single, daring act, a moment when the heart chooses to believe in the worth of another. And in that confidence lay the power to stir hearts not only in a small community, but around the world. Thus, under a starry sky and the soft warmth of a bright dawn, the voyage came to a peaceful conclusion, one that was not an end at all, but rather the promise of fresh beginnings. With each shining light and whispered wind across the field surrounding the community center, the story of the rejected dog and the young man who dared to change his destiny echoed across time, directing every future step to be one of kindness, courage, and steadfast hope. So the life script continued, with each chapter a delicate balance of difficulty and grace, and each page a testament to compassion's transformative power. The story was complete while still unfolding, a timeless testament to how, when we choose to see the beauty in every individual, we all contribute to building a narrative that moves everyone forever.